Hello friends, we are back. Please subscribe if you like the content. I hope by now you have watched Robert Aldrich's Vera Cruz, which is among the director's finest films and one of the more underappreciated westerns in the canon. We will look today, among other things, at the director's camera, his choice of music, and the elements of his style that make this movie unique. This film has everyone: Gary Cooper, Burt Lancaster, Denise Darcel, and Sarah Montiel, so please, if you have not seen it, pause playback now and check out the movie first. Shot by the great Ernest Laszlo, this movie was the first wide-released film to use the Superscope widescreen process, which was a less expensive way to create spectacular widescreen images that Fox's CinemaScope was making anamorphically. Burt Lancaster, who was already 40 years old and the movie's producer, was an undisputed Hollywood hunk and would soon star as Wyatt Earp himself in John Sturgis's The Gunfight at the OK Corral 3 years later. His pairing with Gary Cooper, who was 53 at the time, is an interesting one. I wonder what this film says about manhood and aging. I also wonder what this movie might be saying about Benjamin Train's identity as an ex-Confederate soldier who travels to Mexico in an attempt to redeem himself. Gary Cooper was cast still riding the wave of fame from his much revered performance in High Noon. What you'll notice right away in the first scene is that the beautiful musical score by Hugo Friedhofer is not very Western sounding at all. In fact, the music here in the opening credit sequence, which continues on as we see Benjamin Train ride towards the camera unceremoniously, sounds like it belongs in a lush film noir movie from the 40s. Film noir, a genre that came about right around the time of World War II, also dealt with the contemporary psychology of the day, addressing wartime and post-war anxieties such as death, the fractured family unit, and government conspiracy. Interestingly enough, Aldrich was known for his dark and striking imagery, and made Vera Cruz just before his more well-known works, Kiss Me Deadly and The Big Knife, which are both historically significant film noirs. Like Aldrich's later work, Vera Cruz is a stylized, stunning movie about class, poverty, honor, and redemption, packaged up in a rousing, action-packed film that takes place during the French occupation of Mexico. The film offers a glimpse of history not often revealed in American history books: the Second Franco-Mexican War and the events leading up to the death of Maximilian I in a conflict that took place at the exact same time America was embroiled in its own civil war. Curiously, the Second Franco-Mexican War is from where we derive the Cinco de Mayo celebration in the States, and it is not, in fact, what many non-Mexicans think is Mexico's Independence Day. By the way, as the movie is set in 1866, it takes place before any of the other pictures we will be studying. In fact, the span of time that separates the film's time period and the movie's release is 88 years, an even greater distance than the time span that separates the film's release from our time. As a contemporary living in the 50s, this movie would have felt legendary. Now that we know what tropes are, it is important for us to talk about what they say about our culture. Some of these tropes weren't in my previous lecture, and I wonder what you think of them. The way men embrace and dance around each other in a Western, as much as they might do with the women. The metaphorical and suggestive way a gunfighter shoots from the hip. Men on horseback riding towards camera at the beginning of the film. And conversely, man recessing from camera at the end. What do these images and ideas mean to you? Recurring images within a genre have to be more than just a coincidence, right? Well, whatever the images mean, or whatever they say to you, I would definitely suggest that what a lot of Western directors provide is a romanticized version of history. It isn't accurate, but it is by no means invalid. What does it mean for something to be romanticized? Well, to romanticize something is to remember the good parts and to discard the rest. Like describing history in an idealized or dramatic fashion, to make something seem better or more epic than it may have been in real life. And that's perhaps the style. Style is the manner by which you fashion or heighten a narrative in favor of a particular artist's desires. It's hard to explain in words, but Disneyland's Main Street is a stylized, romanticized version of several Midwestern towns at the dawn of the 1900s. You could say that the dance moves of Michael Jackson are a style of movement that resembles walking, but I would say it's more of like a heightened version of walking. The landscapes of Vera Cruz, the blackness of Joe Aaron's outfit, and the vibrant dresses of Nina remind us that we are watching a historical drama through the lens of style. We have talked in previous classes about the musical art form known as opera, and how opera is a staged musical epic that often portrays life as bigger than it is. What with its lush, staggeringly difficult music and over-the-top sexualized death scenes. In that regard, I don't think it would be inappropriate to think of this movie as a kind of opera. If this movie's fixation with history lends some historical realism, its ostentatious display of color, sweeping music, and ceremonious death scene are elements of Aldrich's style that remind us of this history's importance. Romanticism still occurs in our films today, but perhaps you could say that a sizable percentage of our population is critical of older notions of romance, much like how we've culturally moved away from opera. The mise-en-scène of Vera Cruz is set up easily, such that you understand the picture quickly. Cooper and Lancaster, dressed in contrasting light and dark outfits, are foils to each other, same as the female leads. This is similar to My Darling Clementine. However, I would say the differentiation of good guy and bad guy here are even clearer, as at the end of the movie, an ally will be seen betraying another ally. And also, the camera's insistence on the close-up lets us feel the hero's disillusionment and the weight of his emotional pain more strongly. Vera Cruz is a great epic movie. This Mexican-American co-production was one of the first films to have documented and verified evidence of locals and advisors being hired for authenticity of representation. And as a side note, this film is perhaps a bit more conscious of its treatment of class and race. If we compare this scene with the Indian Charlie scene in My Darling Clementine, we can see that in Vera Cruz the underlying theme is one of cooperation, whereas in the former, it paints a harsher picture of the invading white men clearing out the town of its Indian threat. I hope you enjoyed this lecture, I hope you enjoyed the film's color, and I'll see you next time.